Hey YouTube, I just want to let you guys know that this video is a condensed version of the full video that's over on my Patreon page. This is a rundown of my piece, A Dash for the Timber, which I wrote a couple of years ago for full orchestra. I put up the full score as a score study versions up on my Patreon for score level patrons. So if you want to look at the whole piece, look at the score, consider the decisions that I make while writing, you can go and check that out at patreon.com/ErnestoComposer. Regardless of whether you want to do that or not, I'm sure that maybe you'll learn a little something about why I made a couple of decisions that I made while writing and orchestrating this piece, and I talk over all of my considerations when I was putting this piece together. So go check that out if you're interested. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So I've got the study score version pulled up here on my iPad, and I'll show you what I'm looking at right now. So let me talk a little bit about the instruments that I'm using. I'm using a large full orchestra. I've got every single woodwind instrument has two plus their auxiliary instruments, so triple winds across the board. Then we have a whopping 6 horns that we're using, 6 French horns. So really massive sound. Then I've got 3 trumpets, and they're actually in C, only because it's a little bit more comfortable for the keys that we venture into. The range is slightly different on the C trumpet, I believe, and I think the character is a little bit different as well. So that's in C major, but regardless, that's what it is. 2 tenor trombones, bass trombone, and tuba. Should I have added another tenor trombone to match the sort of weight of the 6 horns? Probably not. I think the way that I use the 6 horns, I use the top 4 as their sort of traditional roles in the orchestra. That's like playing melody or counter melodies or playing harmony together. And then the bottom 2 horns, the 5th and 6th horns, sort of using to beef up the low brass. So I think 2 horns kind of doubling what low trombones or even bass trombones are doing adds a nice sound, and is something that I know John Williams does quite a bit when he asks for 6 French horns. So the 6 horns aren't always playing in unison together just for a more massive sound, but horns are very characteristic for this kind of music. Then I've got timpani and then a drums part supposed to be shared between 3 players. Crash cymbal, snare drum, and bass drum. Tambourine player, and then a mallet player playing glockenspiel, marimba, and xylophone at different moments. I've got a harp and a full string section. So that's the opening. My thinking here, well, firstly, this piece I wrote after I saw a painting by Frederick Remington called A Dash for the Timber. And this painting was so striking to me. The amount of energy and motion that was captured in the painting, which just really inspired me, and I kind of wanted to write a piece of music for it. And so in this intro here, my idea or my goal was kind of the feeling of the sun coming up over the west in a dry, open area in a certain part of the United States. I have a few woodwinds come in as well. So I wrote here, main theme being passed around softly by these woodwinds, foreshadowing what's to come. So what's to come is this full theme, but it's broken up and is shared across these 3 woodwind instruments. The oboe, the clarinet, and the cor anglais. Main theme again in the horn, a solo horn. It's a little heavier than the woodwind instruments beforehand, but it kind of keeps that brass sound going after the trombones and tuba interject. So this theme is based around the pentatonic scale. So this is what it sounds like. It sounds very Western, doesn't it? But every single note I'm using out of the C pentatonic scale. So it uses 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and that's it. So if you're thinking about the C major scale, only uses C, D, E, and then G, A, and then that's it. But yeah, it turns out that a lot of that style of music, the classic Western film score thing, is pentatonic. So that's what I kind of stick with. Very simple harmonically, at least with the theme. Playing the melody, I have strings and octaves, and then I have a piccolo up top, sort of, as I write here, doubling what the top violins are doing, because it can probably start to lose a little bit of its pitch center, only because it gets a little thin. That's a lot of players playing really up high. So the piccolo is added just to add a little definition to the line at that register. And then I move on to another theme in a new key. So from C, we move to A flat, which is a major third down. So let's listen to that. So this section, instead of being super grand and it's like you're riding on a horse in the West, it becomes very lyrical now. So the top two violins, the violins are still playing in octaves. However, there's cello playing along with them in its higher octave, an octave lower. So the melody is being played in 3 different octaves by the strings. So it's very lush, it's very big. The woodwinds are playing some high notes sort of to like make it feel like it's flying or floating a little bit more. The horns right here are just sustaining chords, so very simple, but they are holding down the harmony. And then I add a glockenspiel there for sparkly shimmery color. That's very lyrical, it's nice, but then it gets interrupted immediately by this other sounding sort of thing. So I have low woodwinds here, bass clarinet, bassoons, and the contrabassoon an octave lower, kind of barking these low notes along with the low strings as well. When we get to this section, it for a moment sounds like the tempo has changed because we're just hearing every dotted chord note basically. So at this moment, this is what this sounds like. So this is supposed to be the sort of menacing part of the painting because the protagonists, if you will, of the painting are in the foreground and they're being attacked by another group of riders on horses behind them, shooting and whatnot. This is supposed to portray the danger of that. So all of this, we, instead of in A flat major where we just were for the lyrical section, we move to F minor. We have this sort of ostinato going, and then we hear a run in the woodwinds and in the strings, and then these horns lead us into this figure right here, which I noted is a variation of the theme, not harmonically, but rhythmically it's a variation of the main theme. So it's still recognizable at least on a subconscious level, but it doesn't stick out to you as something valorant. And then it leads us into this next section. Let me show you what that sounds like. So in this section, I just have this ostinato going. It's really driving. I add this snare drum to make it sound, I suppose, a little bit more of what the style it kind of is. By the way, the style that I was trying to emulate was the sort of classic Western films by people like Elmer Bernstein or Max Steiner or Bruce Broughton. They all have movies that they've scored where the style is kind of like, at this point, it's an old-fashioned type of Western feeling to it, but it's very grand, it's very big, it's very almost heroic at times. So that's kind of what I was trying to exercise when I was writing this. And then we hear all of the woodwinds playing the main theme, but it's minor now. If it were major, it would sound like this. But instead, it's like this. So it's, you know, it's still the main theme, but it's not back to the heroic thing that it was before the first time that we heard it. Right after the woodwind say it, I have 4 horns stopped repeating the same rhythm. Again, it's the rhythm of the main melody, but it's not any of the notes yet as well. So this goes on, goes on, goes on. I wanted to end off the piece to find a way to come back to C major from where we are in A flat. So I sort of starting to modulate back from A flat to C major. So the way I kind of did that was I am here. So the harmony sort of goes to A flat, but in order to move to C major, I kind of go up a half step and play a minor 7 flat 5 chord, or an A half diminished chord if you're a classical head. And then this, since it's the diminished 2 of G, we move to G because that leads, this chord leads to G nicely. So I figured from A flat, A half diminished, G major, finally to C. So I thought that that was kind of the approach that I wanted to take. Everyone sort of trills, and then we end on a massive C major chord that's really, really humongous across the entire orchestra. If you have any questions, do let me know. If you're watching this on YouTube, I ask that you do go and check out my Patreon page. I really appreciate it. Consider joining the score level tier, but you can join the sketch level as well, and I'll be adding more pieces of mine to the roster of study scores that you can have. If you want to purchase this piece for performance, you can do so on my website at ernestocomposer.com/catalog. You'll find this piece there for purchase. But if you don't want to buy it, you can join my Patreon and get access just to the study score version so that you can use it on your own to sort of get better. I mean, at this point, there are a couple of things that I think I would change just looking back on it. But overall, I'm very happy with it. This was sort of early on in my orchestration journey. So I learned a lot orchestrating this piece. I learned a lot just making this piece in general. And it was really helpful in how I ended up putting together my symphony, which is also on my catalog page. But I'm going to hold off on going through my entire symphony until after it's been performed and recorded so I can share it with all of you guys. So let me know if you have any questions. Do ask me in the comments below and I'll be sure to get back to you. And if you're watching this on Patreon, go ahead and send me a message or leave a comment and I'll get back to you for sure. And until next time, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Ernesto Composer. You can visit my Patreon at patreon.com/Ernesto Composer. You can get access to templates, score study versions of my own published works, Score Study Sunday Hangouts every single month, and more goodies. You can visit my website at ernestocomposer.com. Thank you so very much for watching, and as always, take care.